Morning, folks. Jay here at The View, Monday morning after an odd weekend. And we'll crack on with a bit of news first, and then I'm going to go into just kind of an overview or review of yesterday's match. So we'll start off with some news, and transfer stuff has kicked off. And Brereton Diaz, of course, has been linked again with Leeds this morning, but this time there's a bit of a kink in the tail. AC Milan are said to be looking at offering the player a pre-contract agreement in January, which they can do because they're not a club in England. Leeds, unfortunately, are not in a position to do that. They would have to wait till the end of the season to do that. Just sign him on a free contract. Or Leeds can go in and buy him. But at the moment, it said that AC Milan have him quite high on their list of players they want. 23-year-old has 7 goals already this game. 7 goals already in 14 games this season. And started the season really, really well. Everton are keeping an eye on the situation as well. But they will be in the same bracket as Leeds. If they want the player in January, they're going to have to spend the money and buy the player in January. So that one is remaining to see what will happen. Rafinha also had some difficult bother over in Barcelona, and if they want to send him back to Leeds on loan, we'll take him. It seems to have turned sour pretty quickly for Rafinha in Barcelona. A lot of fans, and all you got to do is just look up the Barcelona hashtag to see it. A lot of fans turning on him, saying they made a huge mistake in signing Rafinha, and why he is being considered as starting player is a surprise to players. He was called by German media and by Italian media in the Champions League 2 weeks ago as the worst player on the pitch. He is not living up to the expectations. A lot of memes going around about Rafinha saying they thought that he was the next Neymar, and he's not even close. So Brazilian, so pretty harsh stuff being thrown at Rafinha. And he's struggling. He is struggling over there at the moment. He's one goal involvement this season in the league. Not the start that he wanted, but a lot of fans saying that he should go already, which is severe. But if we want to send him back to Leeds, we will gladly take him. As they say, as the saying goes, the grass is not always greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. Jesse Marsh is expected to hold talks to the club this week or next week in regards to transfer plans. There's no set structure to what Leeds are going to do in January. If Leeds do anything in January, as we know, Leeds in the past have been reluctant to. Given where we are in the league and given what we saw at the weekend, I think it's pretty obvious Leeds will have to dip in January and just finish the puzzle because they're very close to it. There's no concrete plans in place for Leeds to make any moves in January just yet, but players will start to get linked, and with the window being a little bit longer this year, well, the time off being a little bit longer before and after the window, it'll be interesting to see what Leeds do. Pascal Struijk, a player at Leeds who's had a really strong start to the season, he wants to extend his contract at Leeds. He said it'd be really nice if he could stay at Leeds longer than he is. He's really enjoying himself. He said when you come to Leeds first at the start, it's a lovely place and a nice place to visit. But when you stay there for a while, you start to realise it's a great place. He's fallen in love with the city, and he said the people are fantastic. I found that as well, and any Leeds fan from outside of the UK who goes to Leeds will tell you the same thing. Once you've been there a couple of times, the place really grows on you. It's a lovely city with great people, and I love going there. So it's great to see Pascal Struijk is happy at Leeds and wants to continue to stay on with Leeds. Great news, and let's get that locked down as quick as we can. So that's it pretty much from the news. It's a day after a game. There's never much going on. So we'll crack on and we'll move over to the match review from yesterday. So where do we start with this? Stuck between two places. It was a fantastic game of football. As a neutral, stepping back, I watched Nottingham Forest play this week. I watched Liverpool and Man City, and I have to say I watched a lot of games recently and I've been bored by the Premier League standard of football. And I have to say, as a spectacle, and if you're a non-Leeds or Arsenal fan watching that game yesterday, that is an advertisement for football and how football should be played in the Premier League. It was a fantastic game of football. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that game from start to finish. Lots of nervy moments, lots of big moments. But if we go through it overview-wise, I mean, the first half I made some notes, and I'll go through them. Like, Jack Harrison started the game in the number 10 position. We've talked about this being an option before at the start of the season. And I thought he did really, really well in there. I thought he was looking really good in the 10. They obviously switched him and Aersenal in the second half, but the three behind the one switched an awful lot over the course of the game. He went out of a bit of the game in the second half, but still was making an impact when he had the ball. And Jackie's been off form the last couple of games. I thought he started to look like his old self against Arsenal. First 18 minutes by a mile the better side on the park. I thought we created a lot of chances. We used the ball well. And I'm just going to say this because let's compartmentalise Rodrigo's performance. First 25 minutes of the game, I thought he was excellent. His movement in the box was really good. He was getting on the end of things. He looked like he could score, and he was desperately unlucky with a little flick ball around the corner, like a block that he didn't score. And then he had that moment, which unfortunately, when you're a player that's out of form or has the ire of the Leeds fans against you, you can't afford to make mistakes like that, and he did. But moving past that for now, when we look at the rest of the half, Leeds looked patient in their press. They weren't panicking on the ball. The build-up was fast when it needed to be fast, and they slowed it down and kept it moving when they needed to. It was a thoroughly disciplined performance in the first half. I heard a lot of the commentators say that Leeds battered Aersenal in the second half. I thought we battered them in the first half as well. I thought we were really, really solid across the play, all across the back was excellent. The midfield were really, really strong as well. And the three behind the front were interesting to watch as well. There's some fantastic movements. Aersenal again, just when he's on the ball and he's running at you, he's such a dangerous player. And then the mistake came from Rodrigo. He had a couple of minutes before he did that big Diaz crossfield ball. He'd done the same thing in the opposition half when he had simpler options on. But it worked out, and it was a great pass. And the fans kind of got up off their feet, and he got his back up a little bit and was a bit, yeah, I'm into this now. And then he tries it a second time. I said it last week about centre halves doing Cruyff turns. You don't want to see it. It's not your wheelhouse. Don't do it. You don't want to see a striker doing big diags across the park in your own half. Things you don't want to see. And he did it in a cause mistake. Could Meslier stand up and be bigger at the front post? Probably. But it's hit with such power. And it just caught Leeds completely off guard. You could see the reaction of the players. They were not expecting that. Jesse Marsh alluded to it in his press conference where he said, Rodrigo goes for a crossfield ball that we don't work on. And he's gone to business for himself a little bit there. It's a bit of a show pony pass, if you ask me. Unnecessary and puts himself under a lot of pressure. And he was okay after that. He was shaky for about 5 minutes after that, but then he started to get back into it. But I could see the change coming at half time. I think it was made for somebody to be more direct through the centre, and Bamford doesn't go as wide as Rodrigo goes. And at half time, should have been 0-0. Should have been 1-0 actually to Leeds, but desperately unlucky. Then the change happens, and this is the one for me with Bamford. You've got a weird situation. Bamford has, you can see it here, the graphic, has the most big chance misses already this season, having barely played this season, with 8. And the thing about this is if you complain about his finishing, which I will, because he should score at least one, and he same against Palace. The reason we get those chances is because he's on the pitch. He's making those runs that Rodrigo doesn't make or Joffrey doesn't make. He makes those specific types of runs, and because of those runs, we get those chances. So without him, we don't get those chances. Unfortunately, he's a player that misses a lot of chances before he scores a lot. And there's a big decision. I said this yesterday in a tweet. Jesse Marsh has a big call to make before Fulham and Leicester. He needs to get minimum 4 points from those 2 games. Minimum. So does he stick with Bamford, waiting on it to happen? Just keep waiting on it to come good and waiting for the sharpness to come. Does he go Rodrigo again? Probably not. Or does he bite the bullet and just either start Joffrey, Gnonto, who I don't think he will, because for me they're not 9s, they're 10s or wider of the 3 strikers. Or does he bring someone like Perkins in, who is a very calm finisher and has proven that in the 21s this year, and just bypass him and just bring somebody in for those games? I think the Fulham game is probably the one to try it in. But they've got Mitrovic coming back now as well, so he'll be back in time for the Leeds game, which is unfortunate. But it's a huge call that he has to make. We are creating chances now where we weren't creating chances before. We need someone to start finishing them, and a finisher more than a goal scorer. A finisher is what's really, really needed. But if you're to go through it and start with the goalkeeper, I thought Meslier had very little to do, and that's a testament to the defence in front of him. I gave Cooper criticism last week on our podcast, and what I said about Cooper was there are things he will do well this year, and I will support him, and there are things he will do not so well, and I will not let him off the hook for that just because of who he is. And I said this before, you can respect the player without, but still expect the best of them right now. And I do. I respect everything Liam Cooper's done for Leeds, but I expect better of him in the league when he's going to play. He was excellent yesterday. I thought he marshalled the defence really, really well. I thought he was mature. He spoke to the back four. They were organised. Robin Koch cleaning up was outstanding. Rasmus Christensen has had another really big game. He's starting to get better and better. This is why we shouldn't be so quick to write players off when they come into Leeds. Give them time to settle. It's a big club. That jersey's heavy. Weighs on a lot of players' backs. He was brilliant. Kept him out of the game. Midfield, Rocket and Adams just get better and better for me. They really do look like a polished machine in there, and they're only going to get better. And the front three were excellent. I can understand people asking about the changes yesterday, but for me, even with 15, 20 minutes to go, it was very difficult to look at that front four and go, well, who do I take off and who do I bring on to change this game? Because we were creating chances still at that point. We still looked like we were going to score. I mean, the one that Bamford does score, Darren Bent has said it today himself, it's not a free kick. I mean, Gabriel's jumped up too early. He knows he's gone early. He's just arched his back to make it look like there's more contact than there was. Anywhere else in the pitch, that's not even a free kick. The VAR decision at the end, I mean, the referee and the linesman have had a look at that. There's 2 officials on the pitch that have had a look at that, and they've then been overruled by VAR, which was a strange one. For me, Gabriel steps across Bamford. Bamford runs into him. Bamford's action is backwards, not forward, which shows he's pushing away from him, not into him. And then the bizarre one for me is, even if the penalty is turned into a free kick, Gabriel still kicks out. So for me, that serious foul play is still serious foul play, even if the penalty's not given. If he's kicked out with the player, he's kicked out with the player. It's still a red card. Should still have stood. So for me, there were two issues in that, two instances in that game where I thought the VAR and the referees let us down. But outside of that, I thought we were excellent. We were excellent, but we've got to take this into Fulham and Leicester. We've got to take this form in. And we've got to play at that for 90 minutes again. And if we do that and we just keep plugging away, we will get goals. We will get goals. There's goals in this team. But we've got to be patient, and I thought they were excellent yesterday. So, I mean, it's a tough one to take. You know, a lot of people said that we were going to get battered going to that game. I didn't think we'd win that game. By the end of it, a pretty good performance. You've got to say, there have been moments against Chelsea, Crystal Palace, you know, even Southampton and Brighton where we've seen glimpses of the system. I think yesterday's the one time we saw for the bulk of the game we saw this team can actually play this system, and that there is a style. And we talked about, is there a merit to Jesse Marsch's style? I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. But do we have the players to continually play this system? I don't know. Big decisions we made in the next couple of months. They've got to go and get a striker in. Do we maintain with Bamford? No, we've probably only got another year or two in him anyway before we want to refresh that. Or do we want to go out and buy an actual number 9? And for me, it's not about respect again. I respect Bamford and I love everything he's done. But for me, I think we need to bite the bullet and buy a number 9 and let Rodrigo head off and maybe look at phasing Bamford over the next year or two and use him as an impact player. But for me, I think we need to go and buy a finisher because it's what's desperately needed. You can't create the amount of chances that Leeds are creating and not score goals. We would be further up the table if we were scoring goals, and that's the biggest problem right now. So that is my view and my waffle for today. Short one in terms of news. Back tomorrow with more news. Let me know what you think in the comments. What did you think of the game, the score? You know, were we unlucky? I think we were. But you know, and what do you think is going to happen going into the next games? What happens with Bamford? Do we start him or do we go with somebody else? Let me know. I'm down to know. I'll get involved in the conversation later on today as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.